Yeah, Ian Pedrick. I am our CEO and one of our co-founders here at Ohanafy, founded in 2022.
Awesome. Ian, tell me about your journey from working with all those different companies you just said, like Salesforce, Accenture, and then lead me right up to Ohanafy, and when kind of take me from that light bulb moment and kind of where everything kind of made sense.
Yeah, I love the question. So have spent my whole career in technology. Started at a company here actually in Wilmington, North Carolina, where we're headquartered, called Encino. That is essentially what we do for the beverage industry for banking, and was fortunate enough to be there very early. Saw that company grow, saw us do a really good job of leveraging Salesforce as a platform and a way to innovate, very specific vertical SaaS software. And then took that experience into other areas, went into consulting with Accenture and Cap Gemini, spent some time at a company called Viva that did the same thing for life sciences and pharmaceuticals, spent some time at Salesforce directly on their partnerships team. And a couple of years ago, myself and some other folks that I've kind of met along the way through that journey had this idea for a supply chain automation platform on top of Salesforce, right? Leveraging all the great configurability and flexibility and automation and analytics and security and mobility. I could go on forever, but like all the really amazing things that we get from Salesforce as a platform, and build it with a very specific focus and lens around manufacturing and distribution. We kind of got this interesting start in beverage and specifically in alcohol and in craft brewing. And then it's sort of grown from there, and now we're in wine and spirits and RTDs and functional beverage and distribution, and you name it. There's about 10 or 11 different subsegments that it's grown into. Yeah.
I want to, speaking from my own experience in leadership and executive in the wholesale level and distribution, as well as on the side of manufacturing. I want to compliment you for taking what at certain times prior to you creating Ohanafy has been a very convoluted market. And it's also been not very specific to food and beverage. And while everybody wants to say, oh, we're unique, beverage is specific and beverage is unique, it kind of is when it comes to a couple other things. And I think that you acknowledging that and pursuing that, talk to me about when you went from the moment of where you wanted to pursue that, instead of just going to Salesforce or going wherever and saying, hey, here's an idea, let's license it. You taking the step with your partners and saying, or your co-founders, and saying, we're going to be entrepreneurs and we're going to do this.
Yeah, no, great question. Certainly could have gone the former, but I think that, look, I had the great fortune throughout my career. I've been very lucky, very blessed to have worked in other great organizations where we built a very similar model. And I think that was sort of the dream, right? Was let's do this ourselves and take lessons learned from having done this before in very large industries and seeing what worked and what didn't work. And let's try and build a model that can work, at both a very small scale, as well as a very large scale, just depending on, which company it is we're talking to. And I think that, our focus, and if you talk to the team at Salesforce, right, we're both an OEM and ISV partner there. So we're very close with that team. They're focused on consumer goods, and they're focused on these big, large, giant components of the market where, we're focused on what is ultimately a subsector of that, like just the distribution and production components of that. Right. So, that's kind of the high level.
And then staying in that high level, when you talk about Ohanafy specifically as a differentiator and how it's a real disruptor, I'm going to give you the compliment right there. You guys have the tenacity to disrupt that. Tell me, if I'm a layman that's looking up and I'm running my brewery or my distributorship, and I'm trying to get up to speed with 2024, and I want my team to be out on the street equipped. I want my manufacturing team. I want the whole thing to be working out. But I understand that there's just a million people calling me. I get a million emails a day of all these different options. How do I differentiate them and set you aside?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first piece is what we try and focus on as a business. So we're not trying to be your ERP. We're not trying to be your WMS. We're trying to be your CRM and sales platform. And we do that through a number of different things. Some of that is the tremendous lift we get just at a very basic platform level through Salesforce, right? They've spent billions of dollars building that platform to what it is today, and we get to provide the same capabilities to our customers. So being able to have, that world-class CRM that you kind of start with as a core, managing my customer relationships, managing my activities, integrating emails and calendars, also having all this stuff not just work great on a desktop, but on my mobile device so that everywhere I go, I can interact with that system in the same way, leveraging all the great automation. And then I think what really sets us apart is when we start getting into, and, in 2024, every business is thinking about this and revolving around data, right? How do we take data and surface that up to, key executives and managers and those folks that need to make decisions from it, and not give them, countless Excel spreadsheets to sift through rows and rows and rows, but give them visuals and give them very easy to digest dashboards that are real time, updated on the fly on my mobile device again, so that I can make better decisions faster. And, that's sort of even just high level in and of itself. I mean, there's so many things we could get into around how we help manage, the actual sales motions, how we help start layering in things like AI when companies are ready. That's something we talk about a lot too, is you hear all the AI buzz, AI, and the reality is, yeah, there's a ton you can do there, but we've got customers and even prospects that we're talking to now that are saying, hey, I want AI, but they're not even using basic CRM and automation capabilities. So we kind of talk about it as a journey, and you've got to start with this piece before you're even remotely ready for that piece.
No, that's an excellent point. I think that, and this is me, this is my opinion as well as anecdotally from my history, is like we are a little bit antiquated when it comes to CRM in the beverage space, especially when you get into the alcohol space and when you get into the distributors. And we over the years have done the best we could by patchworking a million different things. So I want to extend the compliment for you weaving that patchwork into a communication journey and an effective communication channel. And I think that that's what more people need to understand, is that anybody that has been stressed about CRM in the beverage space and in the distributor space of beverage, whether it be an alcohol or not, everybody wants to get to the point where they can put everything under one roof, and you guys do an excellent job at that. On the flip side, we all know the challenges that Salesforce can have because of the generalness of what Salesforce is, and the fact that you made it general yet specific enough to bring value to your clients. Talk a little bit about maybe some testimonials you might have, or some ways that you've breathed some new life into communications and internal communications and outbound with distributors and manufacturers.
Yeah, I mean, I think the overwhelming general consensus that we've had, whether it's small companies or large companies that have evaluated Salesforce or even just evaluated other CRMs, is that they're not really sort of built and designed for the types of businesses that are what, our customers ultimately are, right? And that, if you've got field sales teams that are selling fast moving goods, that they need that recurring touch point and they're always in there. If you look at Salesforce at a high level, it was really, from a CRM perspective, it's more designed for technology companies, right? They use an opportunity and they're tracking all the right. And it's just a very different need when it comes to CRM in these types of businesses. So what we really wanted to try and do was set out building a product that when you undergo an implementation with us, you're not going through a custom software implementation. We have a ton of flexibility. So it's one of the things we talk about when you go live. We don't want you to go live on Ohanafy. We want you to go live on Ohanafy for your business, because it's been a little bit custom tailored and molded, and we change screens, or we automate this, or we put in some reports that are really specific to what you guys need based on your process. And, at its core, I think the big piece is just making sure that we're building things that actually align to how that industry thinks and operates. So having lot traceability built into our sales components, having the ability to build out allocations and look at promotions and incentives and track invoices and all those things that you just don't get out of the box with Salesforce, or you don't get really out of the box with most CRMs. I think we're really trying to focus on being a very verticalized, specific solution for distribution and production there.
What do you see as far as some of the challenges currently in the beverage space, and how your product is going to solve and overcome them?
Yeah, I think right now, one of the biggest that we talk about and think about is, I think there's almost a lack of education and understanding on what a purpose-built CRM can actually do for your business, how it can power your sales team, how it can help your leadership and sales management have a really good understanding on the health of that area of the business, right? So being able to look at margins or look at volumes and profitability and understand which accounts are not getting the love that they need to get. And like, if you can bring that front and center, well, most people are smart enough to figure out, hey, we gotta fix this because the it's screaming at me in my face. Like, we got to change this. But today, you see a lot of companies where they might be trying to run those functions through their ERP, or they're trying to run those functions through their production system that may have some lightweight order capabilities, but it doesn't really surface that stuff up in a way that's consumable, right? I can't go dig into an account and see a timeline of every time we've called, emailed, touch that account in some way. That's important information in 2024, where there's a lot of customers that are moving more towards digital experiences. You've got people who are the next generation that's, they're ordering groceries on Instacart. They use Amazon. Their kids are on their iPads. Like, they want that experience that I think we can provide in a way that's very different. And I think that it's a very different approach to how I think many of the companies in the space have thought about technology, mostly because I don't think that there has been a true solution that can do these things for them out of the box. And it's just trying to educate folks on what in 2024 can a purpose-built CRM really do for your business. And if you're running your sales functions out of your ERP, you're hurting yourself, and we're trying to help them understand how we can help them there.
Yeah, and I can say that when I started out, I've seen the full evolution of technology, and my beginning days in the distribution world, I was still buying fax machines and dropping them off at accounts because they were calling from a broken up reception phone, and the voicemail tape couldn't really understand it.
There you go.
I've evolved from that to where we are today. So I really respect what you're doing. And with that said, kind of where do you see how technology continues to improve the efficiency and overall the value of sales and marketing in beverage?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so much that we can do now. Again, I'll point back to data. Like, I think everything starts with data. The reality is we worked with a lot of customers over the years. They've got great businesses. They want to be doing better than they are. They're very competent, have wonderful leadership. They just don't have something that can easily tell them, where do I need to be focusing my effort, right? And to give you an example, like if you were to go in our system and you see this nice dashboard and it shows the 23 things that you care most about, and now in 5 minutes, I can consume all of that information that before you couldn't even get to, because you don't even know how to get to all that data, and who do you call, and what about this file, and is that thing even updated? Now I can have a real-time accurate depiction of what's going really well that I don't need to worry about, right? Because I think it's something that anyone in any sort of leadership or ownership capacity knows is like, you don't need to focus on the things that are going well. You got to focus on things that are not going well so you can fix those things. So make that really clear and easy for me to understand. It could be things like, give me the ability to understand how my margins are looking for different SKUs, and are those where they need to be at, right? You'd be amazed at the number of customers that can't even tell you, what their average margins look like, or a margin by SKU. And now they're able to see it very clear. They can overlay that with things like volume and see, okay, well, great, margins are great on this product. We're just not selling enough of it. So we got to figure out how to sell more of it. And it all kind of points back to our real approach, and it's nothing novel, right? It's not a unique concept. Is let's use the application in a way that we can either help you save time, make your reps more efficient, make your team more efficient, automate a lot of those monotonous tasks that take up time that you're always having to do. You're always sending that email out on Sunday. Just let the system send it out for you. And then also look at ways that we can, save money, right? Or increase, sales and revenue. And we kind of look at in those 3 buckets. And that's where, when we think about product, we think about roadmap, we're listening to what our customers are telling us. We do monthly releases, by the way, and a lot of that is based on customer feedback. We're trying to put it into one of those 3 buckets so that at the end of the day, there's tangible ROI and value that you can have coming out of an implementation.
I can tell you from when I was a brand manager at a wholesalership, we were just converting. We were in this weird spot where we had went from these 3-inch binders that we were going out with all the sell sheets inside of it. That's how I kind of got started. You're hauling it and it gave you a crick in your neck while you're hauling that binder in, and then flipping through the pages for all the analysis and cost margins. And a lot of people don't realize in the back end, especially in beverage and alcohol, you got 17 different price points and your PTRs and your price points and your mix of sixes and your volumes. And it's like, there's so many variables. Anyway, let me back up for a second, say talking about what you guys are doing and the efficiency of communication, what's happened since then. And the days when I was on the street, we didn't have timestamps. We didn't have route adjust. We sold as we sold, and we had a matrix that we followed, but it wasn't to the detail pressure that exists for a rep today. And that's not pressure that the distributors are putting on. It's pressure of the industry and the market and the world we're in. Yeah. And with that said, it's the amount of SKUs they have, the amount of things they're trying to present. How your talk a little bit about how your technology helps people to effectively make their presentations. Thus, to the sales reps, helps them effectively hit their PFPs, their incentives, and then dribbling all the way up to the brand managers executing their goals, and ultimately to the owners being happy with the way things are outbound.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a few things. So, first and foremost, everything that we do is really role-centric and role-based, right? So depending on your job and your function in the organization, you're going to see very different things when you go into that application. It's something that we've spent a lot of time and energy and money, frankly, on to try and make available is this very dynamic sort of experience, so that when I am the brand manager, or, I could be even like the finance person, whoever's using the application, when I go into that system, I'm not just seeing the same thing everybody else sees. I'm seeing the things that I care about. So I'm seeing, if I'm a rep, I'm seeing a dashboard that shows me a wonderful overview. It could show my quota performance if I'm an organization that actually tracks quotas, right? But if I am, I could see exactly where I'm at. So I know how far do I need to go to get to that next milestone. I could see, things like accounts that show me accounts that I haven't gotten an order from in 30 days, or I could see accounts that I haven't had a good touch point with in a while. And it's surfacing up some of that information where it's not that they don't necessarily know these things. It's that they don't have a nice centralized way to just consume it all quickly. And then it even kind of boils down to how we do that in a mobile capacity. Because obviously when you're sitting at your computer and you got a mouse and keyboard and a big screen you can work on, that's a very different experience and what you can present to a user than when they just have this tiny little phone that they've got to work off. So we spend a lot of time there. And I think, some of the specifics are trying to help if you're a rep, right? Like trying to help them understand which products should you be thinking about in this location. Because we can do things through our mapping application, right? Just to give you an example, we can do things like overlay, hey, what's the route that I'm going to go out today? Which accounts am I visiting? How do I actually get there? And by the way, overlay that with like real-time Google traffic so I can figure out, do I need to not go to that one right now? And let's circle back there on the way back. But while I'm out, overlay that with the list of maybe prospects that I'd love to get into that I should stop in and see while we're there. But then even overlay that with US Census data that shows me what the average household income is in that area. And then also give me a recommended list of products that when I walk into that business, because they're a steakhouse versus a C-store versus whatever, I can go in there and it says, hey, based on historical performance, you should be talking about placing these products because they're going to move quickly. And you're going to have good price points and that good blend of, what's actually going to work out for that rep. That same concept exists for all of the different roles that we support. So if you're a sales manager, you're not the guy who's actually going out, going into those stores every day. You're running a sales team. Aggregate all that information up for me in a way that I can actually understand who's doing a wonderful job I don't need to worry about, who are the ones I need to give them a phone call and figure out, hey, what's going on with this and how do we support you? But it's also even like the details of how we make it very easy to find things in the system. If I need to pull up those sell sheets, if I need to print something off, if I need to have that be, available through a mobile printing device, like all those little kind of nuanced details that we know this industry has to have to be successful with a system like that, do it in a way that is as dynamic as possible so they get the experience they need at the time they need it, as automated as possible. And behind all of it, make that data instantly available and surfaced back to all the analytics that people are constantly looking at to make decisions about the business.
With moving away from the technology a little bit and into your leadership, I'm going to reiterate something I said in the beginning. I'm going to remind everybody listening and watching that we just met personally 24 minutes ago for the first time. Prior to that, I've been in communications with your team, your administrative, your marketing, and everything like that. I want to compliment you, and let's talk about leadership, because everybody has been so top notch. Everybody's been on top of their game. Everybody has. I never had to follow up with anybody. And that's a first I can say in a very long time. And I want to go back to your leadership style, and I want you not to be humble for a second. I want to know the secret sauce. I want to know what gets you up in the morning, and how do you because we live in a crazy world that's remote and on-site and hybrid, and we got society is what it is. And how do you keep that leadership and that constant evolution going with your team?
Oh, wow. I could go so many directions with this, and I really appreciate the compliment, Nate. I think as much as I'd love to take credit for it, I think I've had the opportunity to learn from some really great leaders and folks in the past, and I think it's about setting up the right team around you, right? The folks that we've put in place here, I agree, I think are extremely exceptional people. Some of those folks, I think we have the benefit of, they've come from very similar backgrounds. They've been in similar roles. They've done this in technology and other organizations, and they bring a really good perspective of, they've learned those hard lessons before. So we don't have to learn so many of them here. We're far from perfect, but, I think we try and do a really good job, at a leadership level, where we kind of talk about our business like we're not a technology company. We're a solutions company. Our customers have problems. We have solutions. Sometimes those solutions are in the form of us adding to the platform and building technology that they need. Sometimes those solutions are just in the way that we provide customer support. So, one of the things that has always kind of been, I think, front and center for us is because of the industry that our customers are in, customer success and support is like, it's a pillar of what they expect, because they have to provide it all day long to their customers. So we try and really set ourselves apart in that area. So for example, when you go live with us, you get a customer success manager that's dedicated to your account. And that's someone who sits here in our headquarters in Wilmington, North Carolina. They're right upstairs. You get their cell phone number. There's no ticketing system to log into. You don't get an 800 number to call. This is someone that you meet with every single month. And they start to understand your business. They start to understand who you are, and just kind of zooming out from that. I think that is kind of at the core of how we think about things as a leadership team is customer first. So listen to the customer when it comes to needing to build new product. Listen to our customers when they tell us, hey, like there's things that we don't like and we want to fix them. Because again, we're not perfect, but to go back to your question directly, Nate, as much as I'd love to take credit, man, I think that we've done a really good job of understanding that if we're going to build the type of business we want to build here, you always hear that it's like this customer first, like you've got to treat every customer like they're the only customer. And I agree with that. But I actually think it starts with the employees before you get to the customers. If you treat your employees the right way, if you bring in leadership that can do that and help you with that, that will trickle down to your customers, that will trickle down to your partners, right? So I don't know. I think that's maybe some of my thinking there.
No, and you're right. That's a great way to put it. And with that, you led me into perfectly what I wanted to ask next was, while you mentioned on a weekly updates and things like that. I know in the world that you guys are in, and you being a disruptor and trailblazer and what you're doing, and you're constantly evolving and innovating what you're doing. How do you, as the leader and the founder with your partners, manage innovation and growth in a sustainable manner?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that actually starts with how this business has been sort of capitalized and funded from the beginning. We don't have any venture capital behind us. It's all privately held. We have some high net worth individuals we built relationships with over the last 15 years that really believe in what we're doing, folks that have been in the technology industry for a long time, the Salesforce ecosystem for a long time. And I think, part of our focus from the beginning has been, we want to go build, like anyone, we want to go build a big, awesome, very successful business, of course, but we want to do it the right way, at the right speed and the right pace. And it's not just about grow, numbers. We care a lot about our reputation. We talk about that, probably every single day here, because we also know that if we can just do the right things by our customers, all the other stuff will come, right? We'll go do all the things we want to do long term. Right now, we just need to focus on trying to do the best that we can to listen to what our customers have to say, put the solutions in place that they need, whether it's technology or us just helping in some capacity through a support model. But I think it's just trying to balance, we're fortunate in that we sit on such a wonderful platform that to a degree, it makes innovation a little bit easier for us than a lot of other companies. We're not having to think about, load balancing servers and having to build in security and having to build in encryption and build in how are we going to handle large data volumes, for example. All that's just kind of given to us through that platform level. So now our team can spend all of their time, our engineering team can spend all of their time actually solving very nuanced industry specific problems and building the technology for that, so that we don't have to get too deep in the weeds on the other pieces and we can just focus on that. And again, it's just about trying to balance expectations, I think, with who we want to become and, the pace that we want to try and pull those things off and just do it in a way that's responsible, especially in 2024 and the economy that we're in and the age of SaaS that we're in. Like, a lot of that stuff has changed, right? So trying to adapt to that model that we sit in now.
For you as a founder and a leader on a day-to-day basis, how do you balance the work-life balance for yourself personally? And I say that as a fellow girl dad and with kids, and we're heading into a holiday weekend. How do you do that? How do you balance what you're doing and give everybody the attention that they need, as well as keep yourself in a place that is sustainable?
I love that question because I think about, like, from the father perspective, the husband perspective, the work perspective. I think it's this never-ending balance of, it's a competition for your time, like right now, right? It's like your kids want your attention right now, not 10 years from now, but your work needs your attention right now, and your wife needs your attention right now. Some of that, I'm very fortunate with the team I have around me. I actually took a day off the other day, and as soon as I took off, everyone's like, "Hey, no working today. Like, we got you. We'll be okay." So I think it starts with that. I'll give my wife a shout out here because I married an incredible woman. We have our 10-year anniversary coming up here in a few weeks.
Congratulations.
Thank you. She's always been extremely supportive and does a great job holding down, the house for us when I'm not available. But I also try and, I think it's things you learn along the way, man. I think if you came to my house after a long day of work, there's usually a period from about 6 to 9 where my phone's sitting in a bowl and I'm not looking at it, just so I can hang out with my children and I can have dinner and be present and be in that moment. So I think you get the little wins during the day like that, but I think you also have to carve out, bigger time, go on your anniversary trips. We talk a lot about internally here too. We don't have a PTO policy. We just say, guys, like, do what you need to do. We know everybody's working hard. Sometimes you're burning the midnight oil. It's easy to get burnt out. Don't get burnt out. Go take time off. You're all trusted and responsible people. Do what you need to do. Tell us how we can support you in that. We'll cover for you while you're out. And I think it's just trying to have that culture that understands we want to build something really successful, but we want to do it the right way, the fun way. We want to be able to, like, enjoy it, and that means we've got to also be realistic with what people need and expect and want in a company, and it's true for me even in my role here, right? It's all those things. So yeah, I don't know, just a little bit of that.
No, like, you and I are we're seasoned veterans. You're seasoned into the tech world, I'm seasoned into the beverage world. What advice, you and I both grew up with Entrepreneur magazine and Inc magazine and all those things. What when we get into the world, my business that I'm talking you through, I founded in 2008. So FreeMind LLC started in 2008. I started booking bands, making their flyers, handbills, stuff like that. That's then how I started working with breweries and doing sponsorships of the band concerts and all that stuff. And here we are talking 20 years later. But but with that said, what kind of advice would you give to somebody looking at the tech space or the beverage space in 2024 and 2025 that isn't yet here? Maybe they've been a bartender their whole time and they want to change careers but stay in the industry, or vice versa. They work at a brewery and want to go to a distributor, or however you want to think about it. I don't want to overcomplicate it or overload it, but kind of like.
Yeah. No, I love the question. I mean, I would probably say two things. The first is I think it's very basic in nature, but it's also easy to not think about it and get turned off. I think you can't be afraid of rejection and being told no and being afraid to fail. I mean, man, if I told you the amount of people who told us like, don't do this is a bad idea, or the amount of times we had a demo or we showed something like, oh, you guys are crazy. I think it really is that just you have to have perseverance, and you have to, if there's something out there, of course, it's always a great idea. Go get validation, talk to people, talk to your network. But I think it's also just because people say no or they think you're crazy. I mean, you couldn't even begin to count the number of businesses that people have built that are extremely successful that they were told, don't do this. This makes no sense. You'll never succeed. And I think it sounds a little cliche, but it's just don't be afraid of rejection and don't be afraid of failure. I mean, the failure piece we talk about here all the time. I mean, I had a whole meeting yesterday with a large piece of our team, and we talked about that. And we said, guys, like, it's okay. You have to be willing to fail, because that's where you learn. And, ideally you fail fast and right, all that stuff. But I think it's just accepting the unknown. There's a really cool kind of short video and clip that Elon Musk did. And he talks about kind of like the concept of like starting a business is like staring into the abyss, right? And what he meant was like you're constantly facing like the extermination of the company if you don't do these things, and you've got to figure these things out. And I think it's also where I'm going is, I think the other side of this is just making sure you know what you're getting yourself into and you know what you're signing up for. A lot of people think like, oh, starting a company is so much fun. You and I know, Nate, that like, of course, like you want to have fun days, and there are a lot of really awesome fun days. A lot of days that's not the case. I think it's just setting realistic expectations with yourself that you're going to try things, you're going to fail, you're going to screw up. You're going to be like, oh my God, I can't believe, like, why did I do this? And it's in those moments you can't get discouraged. You gotta stay focused on that vision and that mission that you see, and just keep marching and try and find the right people to surround yourself with that have that same vision, because you can't do it all by yourself. Yeah, I don't know, just a few.
No, you're perfect on that. And with that also, do you do any advisory or mentorship internally or externally currently?
I do some stuff just more like one-off. It's nothing in a formal capacity. I've had a lot of folks approach me about it, but candidly, actually kind of going back to our how do you balance everything and kids, like I've tried to be really diligent on that, and I've got my hands so full here that it's hard to commit to anything else right now, because
I fully agree. I was on a lot of boards and executive boards and all this stuff and before, when the kids were really young, and then the older they got, it just the routine and the schedule was hard to adhere to. So I appreciate that. Yeah. I empathize with you on that one. How about you for passions and hobbies outside of tech and the beverage world? What gets you excited outside of the office?
Yeah, I mean, obviously,
and aside from the kids and the family,
love spending time with my children, of course. But for me personally, I love to play golf. I wish I was better than I am, but I still enjoy getting out there. Actually, our head of sales is a former PGA pro, so I try and play with him, but it's kind of not fun to play with him at the same time because he's just so much better. But I love playing golf. And then, we're headquartered in Wilmington, North Carolina. So nice, awesome beach town here on the coast in the Southeast. We love getting out on the boat, going fishing. We've got this really cool intercoastal waterway where there's all these islands. So usually on the weekends, if the weather's nice, you'll find me out on the boat with my wife, my family, and my dog, and we'll be out there on the island with a cooler and hanging out. So anything with the water or getting out on the golf course is my cup of tea.
Perfect. And looking back at your own personal career, what do you obviously this is a moment you're proud of, but are there any scenarios or moments where you really hang your hat and you're like, that was my superpower and only uniquely I could have achieved that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it actually reminds me, I'll just a quick sort of sidebar around that is someone who's actually an investor in this company a long time ago told me that if you want to get ahead in your career, you need to become a specialist in something. Don't be a generalist. Just be the best person at this one thing. I think that very early in my career, I had the opportunity to be a part of, I mentioned a company where we did this in banking, and be a part of a very small team in a sales capacity where we kind of had this unique role where you could sit a little bit between the technology and sit between the sales team and kind of be that expert in helping customers understand how things work. You weren't a sales rep. You didn't get paid commission, right? You were just there to help them understand the technology. That was something I think I really excelled in, that I really enjoyed. It was a very early role for me, but one that I really kind of felt very comfortable in, and then use that to kind of build upon in other roles when I exited that company and did very similar things. So, yeah.
When you, for you, there's two parts to this. One is you hold all the data that everybody wants to know. So I want to ask you about trends or different things that you kind of see going on that are in the industry and from a data perspective. And then on the flip side, kind of what you see from let's say a communications and a human aspect for the industry.
It's a great question. There is actually, might be worth mentioning, we are working on a formal data product. So something we're calling our data cloud, and working on a way to essentially take, and it's up to our customers, right? You can opt into this, you can opt out of it. Some customers are very sensitive about that and certainly understand, but take aggregated and anonymized data, right? So we're not pulling specific customers or specific, if it's a producer, we're not looking at your recipes or anything that's top secret. It's really mostly sales data, also production data in there, inventory data, but trying to use that to roll up at a higher level to look across the portfolio and then bring that information back into the platform so that I can understand very easily, how do I look like as a benchmark? How do I look against other trends? So what do our sales look like for a company in our area versus all the other companies in our area? Are we higher? Are we lower? If we are lower, why are we lower? Like, what's going on? How do we fix that? So there's some really cool things that I think, again, because of the platform we sit on, it makes it really easy for us to do this stuff. And there's some really exciting between the data cloud and the advanced analytics stuff that we're working on that, as you kind of have to, I think, to a degree in 2024, have some sort of an AI play. We've been investing a lot of time and energy there. Again, get a huge lift from Salesforce because they've made some major investments at a platform level there that we get to inherit for our customers. So also looking at how can we leverage the data that exists, whether it's in a customer's environment or a larger data warehouse that we own. How can we, use that information to be more predictive, right, in nature, and not just always looking backwards, but actually starting to look forwards and make predictions about, different products or different customers or different, seasonality and trends and times of year. I think that's, maybe the data piece. On the communication piece, I think that you're seeing so many companies today that they don't want to interact with the salesperson when they want to purchase something. They just want to go purchase it. It's that Amazon-like experience, right? So I think it's, how do you support companies in that? Well, you need to give them access to tools and capabilities that have that similar feel. So whether it's giving them an integrated order hub, right? That's something that we've built where you can go in and without having to set up an entirely new piece of technology and build all the integrations, it can kind of sit on top of our environment and you can expose that. let's say you're a distributor and you want to expose that to your retailers so they can go in and place orders and give them that experience that they're used to having. Or if it's things like having integrated SMS, right? Because sometimes people just want to send text messages, but you also want that traceability so you don't lose that. And you can always see that visibility at a customer level. I think it's trying to mirror the expectations that customers have to be able to interact in a digital capacity in a way that's very efficient and cuts out all of the back and forth conversations and phone calls, getting out of the email, but putting the power in the customer's hand to just do the things that they need to do when they need to do it,
Yeah, it's one of those things too. When you said about the data cloud, I'm geeking out, and I'm really excited about that because I cannot think about. My head used to be full of luscious locks. It was a very air. But what I used to have to do was with brands like, and I'm going to make fun of them right now, and they know I'm joking. Rich Rush, this is for you over at New Belgium. I remember when they were coming to Pennsylvania, and I was responsible for putting together their distribution network, and they wanted all these specific data points of competitive brand analysis and county by county census data. Everything you just said is at somebody's fingertips right now with your system. I don't even want to begin to tell you the hours that I spent manually trying to find it. And not to mention what a lot of people don't realize is we go off IRI Nielsen data, but that's only chain. That's not counting. And for Pennsylvania specifically, trying to build a market research for a brand like New Belgium to decide on a state where at that time, 90% of the sales were done in the independent channel. They weren't yet at the point where it is now in the proliferation of the grocery stores and C-stores and everything like that. So I compliment you for that. And I also just can't even imagine how exciting that must be. And I think any rep that doesn't appreciate it at this point, I'd love to sit down and tell them what it used to be like less than 10 years ago.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that. I mean, it's in full transparency, it is probably the next most exciting product that we're thinking about because of just how much we will be able to do with it and helping folks, again, just have a good way to benchmark themselves against a larger portfolio. That could be data that we're pulling specifically from our systems. It could also be data that we're working with other partners on pulling in to use for benchmarking and just trying to give them that one centralized location where A, they can just kind of understand how they're doing, but B, have additional, more advanced capabilities on how they visualize things outside of just sort of our normal reporting and dashboarding capabilities. So for example, if I wanted a map to show me everywhere my products have been placed, maybe I'm a producer and I want to look at depletion data with my distributors, show me those depletions on a map of the United States and heat map it, color code it, so I can see the really dark green areas we've really sold a ton into. Let me click into that and see that state. Now that I see the state, show me it county by county, right? And they're things that we know the industry wants and they've just never really been able to do because the technology just hasn't really been there. So there's a lot of, and I could go on and on with the examples, but there's a lot of really cool things like that we're thinking about, we're building, we're bringing to market, and we're trying to do it all in a very connected way. So this isn't like some new, you got to go log in over here and it's completely disconnected. It's in the same system you're already using to do everything else, right? So,
and that's with the way the world is as a sales rep and everything like that. My last question: there's no way to be sustainable and efficient without it being under one roof. So, thank you for thinking that way, and thank you for going that direction. And I'm sure a lot of people will reap the rewards of that benefit soon enough. My last question for you is specifically on you. You're every day you're facing different situational management situations and you're constantly making decisions. We talked earlier about, you're in growth and innovation mode while maintaining sustainability. What are some of the tips and tricks to your decision-making process? Both, I mean that from a logical standpoint as well as a emotional intelligence standpoint.
Yeah. I would say probably two parts to this. I think we do a good job. I try and do a good job of not making decisions in a vacuum, but leveraging the leadership team that we have around the table. So when there's something, insert X problem that we need to solve, we're attacking that from 6 different angles, and I'm getting 6 different perspectives, because the reality is, there's a lot of times that I'm approaching a problem. I'm not thinking about it the way that this other person who has very different strengths, very different weaknesses, a very different brain. They're thinking about it completely differently. I can't even count the number of times I've been like, oh, we got to do this. And then after hearing out the rest of the team, like, I'm totally off base here. We do not need to do that. We need to do this. I think that's the first piece. And I think the second piece is, it's advice I try and give, anyone, is there's a difference between reacting and responding, right? And a lot of times, and in any business, X is going to happen, some problem. It's so easy to get caught up in that moment. It's emotional. You have some sort of tie to it, and you just want to react and like, oh, we're going to do this right now. And I've learned the hard way to a lot of times take time, spend a day on it. We kind of joke about this 24-hour rule sometimes. It's like, oh, we got to go. We got to do that. And then it's actually funny. Kirsten, our head of marketing, is always the one holding us accountable. That's for you, Kirsten. She's like, 24-hour rule, guys. Hang on. Let's think on it for a minute. But I think it's like being really diligent about when there's those, especially very important decisions that need to be made. You can't react out of emotion. You have to really, sit down, think on it, talk to the team, get perspective, talk to trusted advisors and mentors, and come back with a response again, which is very different than just a reaction. So, yeah.
Ian, I want to thank you. I think that I have to publicly say this every time, and I say it every time because it needs to be said and it needs to be reiterated. 53 minutes ago, you had no idea what questions were going to be asked. You never met me before. We've never shaken hands, never shared a beer, never had a cup of coffee, and never fought over the last piece of fried chicken on the table. All right. And with that said, I want to thank you for your confidence and your determination and your eloquence and the way you present yourself and you carry yourself. It is a true testament with everybody that works with you and vice versa. I believe that you guys all feed off of each other, and the respect that is felt when I speak to your team about you and in reverse the way you speak about them is not common in today's world. And I want to compliment you on that. And I want to say, don't ever stop doing what you're doing, because that's the future. And I think that it makes me excited to see people like you in this industry making a change and making a change in a way that's productive for society as well. Because you could have easily went into the tech world and done what we could name a lot of places have done, and you're not doing that. And it's very evident in everything that you guys are doing. So, and on the flip side, the fact of just the guts and the courage to hop on a podcast without any prep, I appreciate it. And I intentionally do this because I only want the types of people that are willing to do it. And I compliment you and I thank you for your time.
Well, I appreciate that, Nate. It's very high praise, and I love the approach. It's been great getting to know you, and I appreciate all the time as well. Look forward to hopefully speaking to you again in the future here.
If you have a story to share or you know someone with an inspiring journey, the FreeMind Podcast wants to hear from you. Submit your story or nominate somebody to be our next guest. Check out our website, thefreemindpodcast.com, and be a part of the conversation that truly matters. Your story could be the next one that inspires our world.